Hi everyone, my name is Yesenia Manqueros and I am here with Miss Allen. Miss Allen and I are both teachers at Mableton Elementary School. And Miss Allen has been so gracious to record a video during her reading workshop time. So we both saw the video individually and we've taken notes on some things from the video. So Miss Allen, could you please tell us a little bit about what went on during your video in the reading workshop time?
Sure. So this lesson was on comparing and contrasting two texts on the same topic, which was fairly new to the students, but they did have some background knowledge on comparing and contrasting stories. And so I was looking forward to teaching them now how to use the same comparing and contrasting skill, but with nonfiction text. And so during my lesson, I modeled how to compare and contrast two articles on oil spills, and the students were helping me find text evidence in the passages. They were helping me fill out my Venn diagram. So it was a lot of interaction with students and myself, also explicitly modeling for them. And then during that lesson, the students then had to go back to their seat to independently practice this skill, which is something that I like to do during my reading workshop time, is model and then have them apply the skill independently. And then also in reading workshop, students have the time to have free choice of reading, listening to reading, going to the media center and things like that. And so throughout the lesson, there were some really great parts of them practicing with me and then independently working as well.
Okay, so how would you rate your lesson from 1 to 10? 10 being the best lesson that you have ever had, and 1 being the worst.
I would say around a 6. Like I mentioned just a minute ago, there were some really great things that did occur in the lesson, but then there were also some things that when I looked back on it, I was not so pleased about. So I would rate it around 6.
Okay, and since you did rate it at a 6, what were some glows that you saw from the lesson? What are some things that were going really well?
So reflecting back on it, really well was a lot of the mini lesson time where the students were with me. They were sharing their ideas. They were pointing out where I could find the evidence in the text. They were really engaged. I was excited with how well they were doing during the mini lesson. And then here at Mableton, we have learning targets. And so I always make sure that I reiterate what's the learning target, because that's the student's goal. That's what we want them to do and be able to do by the end of the lesson. And so one thing I loved during that lesson was when I was sending the kids back, they knew what their independent task was and they knew how to hit it with the learning target. And so I was really excited about how they knew what was expected.
Yes. I was going to say that I like how you had the students say the reading target and kind of break it down so they knew what their goal was after they left your lesson time to go to their task time. And that was something that I really liked because it just shows how you had the students know what they were supposed to do before they got to applying it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. So now that we know about your glows, what do you think should change, or how do you think your lesson could go from a 6 to a 10?
All right, so a 6 to a 10, there's definitely room for improvement there. Reflecting back on that video, something that I would like to see change would be more students focused and on task during their independent time. I loved how engaged they were with me during the mini lesson, that when I look back and I saw students off task, not reaching their second station, just, not completing the work, it was pretty discouraging. And so for it to go from a 6 to a 10, I would love to see students on task, at their seats, getting to independently read, have a book in their hands, authentically connecting like that, and not just wasting time.
I think that is great. Being on task and focus on the task and not wasting time is essential during a reading workshop, because we need all the time we can get. We need maximized learning. And like you said, like authentically, them actually authentically learning. So what would be different, or what would your students be doing differently if your lesson was a 10?
So I don't want them to waste all of their time on a task. I don't want them to be stuck on a task, and I don't want them wasting time and not getting to that second choice of independently reading. So the students would be sitting down, focus, completing the skill that we practiced during the mini lesson, and then getting to go to that second rotation, transitioning quickly from mini lesson to independent work to then free choice of their second station for reading. So I would love to see students listening to books. I would love to see students stopping and jotting when they're reading and journaling, getting chances to go check out new books from the media center. So I would just love to see a lot more on task behavior during their independent time.
Okay. What did you notice that stood out to you that's happening in your video that needs to change with your students? I think you mentioned, that part, how you would like for them to be engaged, and how when you look up, like you want to see everybody working, not just like the people in your group.
And one thing I didn't mention was when they're independently working, I'm doing a small group guided reading lesson. And so it's really important that I can trust that they're doing what they need to be doing and, be held accountable for their work while I'm trying to serve the students at my table on something totally different. And so it would be, like you said, like a seamless look up and be able to recognize that all students are on task.
Also, it really helps everybody, not just the students that are doing their task, but the students at your group. Like if you're constantly like looking up and having to redirect other students, like they're losing focus. Also, they're looking at like who you're talking to, and so I feel like this would benefit everybody, not just the students.
Absolutely.
That are off task. Okay, so how can we measure the change?
Yeah, so I guess to see more students on task, like I said, an observation, like a quick look up, like I could be maybe like tallying if I see students on task, or maybe some sort of like checklist if I'm checking in to see who's getting their work done each rotation, something like that, just to kind of like keep them accountable, keep track of it, and just like not let it slip day after day of not getting completed work and not getting to like rotation. So I would love to just see more work done and see more students on task.
Okay, so you suggested a checklist, and I think that's great because not only does that have like you see have you see who's actually doing like the task and the station, but it's also like really helpful for like data purposes, and like just there's always parents that sometimes ask, well, my student isn't understanding, and that could be something you can bring up, like, well, they're not finishing their task, so they're not really maximizing their time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So do you want this to be your goal of maximizing their work time and like having them be focused and engaged during their task and station time?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Okay.
I think just having them, completing work and being on task, focused, engaged with what they're doing at hand would be like so helpful.
Okay, that would be awesome to see. Would hitting this goal be something meaningful to you?
Yeah, because that would mean my students are feeling successful with what they're doing at their seat. I'm able to do a guided reading lesson, thoroughly with the students that I have at my table, and just like knowing that like they're learning from the lesson and feeling confident to apply it themselves. I mean, that would mean a lot to me, and I know it would to them, as well.
Yes. Also, like if we think about it, this could also be like something used in any other subject, like just doing what you need to do in the time frame that you need to do it, so you can get to doing like you said, going from the task to the station time when they can independently read or do whatever it is that they need to do. That can also be like a real world connection, because we all have deadlines, and we know that if we don't meet them, like things won't get done. Everything will be like kind of put in the back, and like sometimes they won't even get done, and we procrastinate.
Right.
So you're kind of aiming towards seeing them also like not be procrastinators and achieve like each step of your reading workshop.
Yeah, and like you said, it will set them up for success not only in my classroom but other teachers' classrooms in their future. So that's definitely super meaningful to me.
That's good. What are some strategies that come to mind when you want to hit this goal of your students being focused during their task and station time after they leave your small group or your lesson?
Something that I see successful in the classroom when it comes to transitions, when I say like, let's clean up, let's get our desk cleared off, let's line up and be ready to go, is I'll give them a time frame, like a timer, or I'll say when the hand gets on this, and they're very eager to meet it within that time frame. And so I've always just kind of noticed something with time keeps them focused and really engaged in getting it done. And so I'm like wondering if somehow I can utilize something to help them track their time, recognize their time, maybe kind of check in to see, have I wasted my time or am I on track? And so I'm thinking of some sort of strategy with them being accountable on tracking time or focused on that.
I think that using that can also be helpful for them to, like you said, keep track of what they're doing, but also like see if they're not wasting too much time, maybe like in the task, or like, oh, I spent my whole reading workshop time in the task and I never got to doing my independent reading or going to the library. So I think having, maybe your a digital tool, kind of like a stopwatch maybe, could be like really good for them. To track, how long they were in this place and then they moved on to the next place. That could also help with our Beanstack challenge.
Yeah.
Because if they finish their task, then they can go into that independent reading time, partner reading, and then using the stopwatch, they can record how long they were in that independent reading and then log them into the computer later afterwards, or using like tablet or whatever, and complete that challenge and make it more meaningful.
Yeah, and I know like they would love that because they're always asking, how long was I reading for? And so if they have a way to, keep track of the time, then they'll be a lot more encouraged to put those minutes in and stuff. So I know that they would love that too.
Oh, and I think that would also help them like want to increase.
Absolutely.
Like I can totally see your students like being like, Miss Allen, I did like 10 minutes today, but tomorrow I'm gonna get to do like 3 more minutes.
Yeah, I think they would love that so much. I can see it too. I love it.
So now we said that, how much of your class was engaged or like was doing what would your percentage be? How much would you want to increase it?
The students that were like on task, I would say it was like less than half. When like I look back on that video, I look around at the different tables and like the students that were not with me, there was a less than half were actually on task, probably like 40%. So like if I could in a real world have all students on task, that would be ideal. But right now I think 80 would be like, obtainable and exciting, just to like look up and see, over 3/4 of the class is working. That would mean a lot.
I think that's an achievable goal, and we can definitely that would be great if you just like looked up and like everybody was working. That'd be super ideal if everybody was working. Right. But 80% I think is a great goal. And it's a great place to, to start to see improvement.
Yeah.
So, how would you notice that they're on task?
I think, like I said, I'd look up, they'd be working, like there'd be completed work that would be prepared to be turned in, there'd be students reading, they'd be listening to reading. I think I would just see like a very peaceful, calm, but hardworking classroom.
And how would you kind of like keep track of their, if they were on task?
Like I was thinking a checklist myself, but like I want to be focused on my guided reading students. I want to be doing running records and, working on vocabulary with them. So I'm thinking like, is there a way that I can keep my students accountable or have them have that self-reflection? So maybe like something that they're going to be in charge of to turn into me or to, document and then show me. So maybe like a student checklist or student reflection part.
I think that's great because not only are you keeping them accountable, but that, like we said, we're going to use that stopwatch component. So like they're really going to have to like see like, oh, I've been here for too long, or if I don't hurry up, then my the station time that I have is going to be not as long as I want it to be. So that's a good way to keep data on it. So we will use that data to evaluate how your students are remaining focused and engaged during their task and station time. And you want to increase that engagement from 40% to 80%, correct?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so we could have each student have maybe a tablet or an iPad with them and a checklist. I feel like maybe their checklist could be inside their reading journal.
Oh yeah, because that's where we complete a lot of the tasks.
And it could be like, I don't know, like an expo marker or something, so they can erase it easily. And the checklist and the tablet could be used, like the tablet could be used to record their time, and they can also put that in their little checklist somewhere. But then each student would be required to check off when they completed their task, and then when they went to stations and how long they took in both of those places. So we know that iPads are available for our students like all the time. So your students that were in, your lesson could have one, tablet each, and each one would have their checklist inside their journal. So that would be a great way for us to, for you to track, if they're actually doing each step of your reading workshop. So we've already spoken about how your students have a task and a station after their reading lesson. So we're going to use, we're going to be talking about strategies and, making a plan to see the level of engagement in your classroom during your reading workshop increase. And I'm looking forward to working with you on that.
I know, me too. I'm excited to see that. I think, like you said earlier, it'll benefit not only my students when they're with me, but like in the future, they'll be held accountable for getting things done on time, not wasting time, not feeling frustrated for wasting their time and missing a rotation. So I think this will definitely help them. It's going to help me. It's going to make things smoother in the class. So I look forward to working together too.
Thank you. Me too.